kind of the devil's in the details. And you see number one here, Gaza will be de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. Yeah, who's going to define what's de-radicalized and what is the standard for that? Is it something that Israel will impose upon the Palestinians or something that you're going to get them to agree to? That seems to be a pretty big sticking point right off the pot, because the definitions and interpretations are, well, pretty far apart. Number two, dramatic change from what Trump had said just months ago, that Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of its people. Now, this is one I'm certainly for and was very much against what Trump had said in the past. We'll see if Israel is going to agree to that. See, one of the problems with this is that Ben-Gvir, for example, and many on the right, and not just the right, but actually many in Israel across the political divide, are against any kind of peace deal. In fact, I think it was on the, let's see, this is the 29th, I think it was the 26th. Gary, if you can put that not Truth Social, but X post up from Ben-Gvir. This is what he said here recently. He said, I congratulate Benjamin Netanyahu on a powerful and important speech at the UN. We must continue with full force to decisively defeat the Hamas monsters in Gaza swiftly, while halting the, quote, humanitarian aid that Prime Minister declared in his speech is being stolen by Hamas to bury the nightmare dream of the Palestinian state, to crush the terrorist organization calling itself the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria, which is what we call the West Bank, which must be inseparable part of the state of Israel until absolute victory. So this is one of the cabinet members, Ben-Gvir, who is saying, I don't want there to be any peace deal with Hamas. I don't want there to be any humanitarian aid. There won't be a Palestinian state. And in fact, there won't even be a Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. So he literally wants to crush everybody and wants no quarter given to anyone. So that doesn't seem like that's if he's going to, Benjamin Netanyahu is going to go back to Israel now and try to sell this to his own people with the leadership in Ben-Gvir. And I promise you, he is not some fringe lunatic. You may hate everything that he says, but he's not a fringe. He represents a pretty substantial number of people in Israel that agree to those things. So I'm thinking that even with some of the disputes that Netanyahu has with Trump, I'm not convinced at all he's going to be able to sell this to his own people, much less his own cabinet. I mean, even that seems like it's going to be out of the realm of possibility. Going back to the comments here, number three, he says an immediate end to the war. Now, that would be great. If Israel and Hamas agree to the proposal, the war will end immediately, and with the IDF halting all operations, gradually withdrawing from the Strip. Now, that also contradicts what Netanyahu says. He didn't say anything about gradually withdrawing from the Strip. In fact, to the contrary, he said, we'll continue to provide the security indefinitely. No time frame given to that at all. So that seems to be a problem. Number four, all hostages are back, and the Palestinian hostages too. So this is a difference. Another one. Hostages within 48 hours, Israel publicly accepting the deal. All living and deceased hostages will be returned. Once the hostages are returned, and number five, Israel will free several hundred Palestinian security prisoners serving life sentences and over 1,000 Gazans arrested since the start of the war. Benjamin Netanyahu didn't say anything about that. All either Trump or Netanyahu said was that they wanted all the hostages, dead and alive, to be released within 48 hours. Now, that can work. And listen, I've advocated that that's exactly what the Palestinian or what the Hamas group should do for their own benefit. They should said, all right, you know what? We're going to get them back and in exchange for getting ours. If that can end the war, if that can end the killing so that they don't get their people blown up every day, there is no path for Hamas. There is no scenario on the planet that either the United States or Israel is going to agree to any kind of a political role for Hamas in any form. I mean, it's just not even possible. Israel will definitely just ignore the whole world, and they will continue on, even if they have to fight with, knives and pitchforks if they had to, if it came to that, as opposed to saying, yes, okay, Hamas can have some kind of role. So that's not in the cards at all. And given that, and we're going to get, in fact, let's just go to point number 6, because this is the one thing that could possibly make that happen, is that once the hostages are returned, Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence will be granted amnesty, while members who wish to leave the Strip will be granted safe passage to receiving countries. That is the one thing. This needs to be in there. If there's going to be any kind of deal, there has to be something like this. You've got to give the Hamas, the people who are still in charge, some kind of idea that by agreeing to what you want, then they will leave. Because if you don't, now I know that many people, and even before I finish that sentence, a lot of you may be hearing that and saying, no, those monsters don't deserve anything. No amnesty, no nothing. They all deserve death. Okay, then what you're doing is saying there will be no peace, and that no one will get a pass. And even if you hate all the Palestinian people, and even if you're one of those who could care less and don't even view the Palestinians as human, and you could care less how many of them die, many people, I'm just being blunt here and honest, many people are fine with Palestinian people died. You've probably seen many of the videos. There's many in Israel who says there are no innocent civilians in Palestine. They all deserve to die. They're all equal with Hamas written large. Even if that's your twisted view, and I'm sorry if that insults anyone's feelings who holds that view, but that's how I view it. Even if you hold that view, though, you should want this pragmatic situation here, because then no more Israeli soldiers have to die. If you care about Israel and you want peace for the country and the end of this war for the Israeli Defense Forces, then you would have to grit your teeth and say, this is what we have to do, because this is the one path that can allow some of the Hamas people to say, okay, at least we can survive, and then we'll go off somewhere else. Now, if they leave, then there's obviously going to be some problems with that in the future, and I don't dispute that. And that is a cost to doing this course of action, but we'll have to wait and see how that's going to happen, because you're going to have to do something. Bottom line is that there's no easy deal here. There is no easy path. If Israel could have won it militarily, they would have already done it. We're closing in on the 2-year mark of that. They haven't done it. They're no closer to doing it than they were before, even by some of the Israeli analysts that talk that the number of the Hamas fighters is about the same as it was when they started this, because they keep creating new enemies. That's the bottom line there. Moving on. This is important. Number 2. Number 7. Once this agreement is reached, aid will surge to the Strip at rates no lower than the benchmark set in January 2025 hostage deal, which included 600 trucks of aid per day, along with the rehabilitation of crucial infrastructure and the entry of equipment for removing rubble. Now, that's another one. This is something that's really good for the Palestinian side and for humanity. This is something they have to have, the trucks up to that rate. To give you an idea how big of an issue that would be, is from March 2nd to May 18th, there were per day, on average, 0 trucks going in. Now, you may recall Benjamin Netanyahu, in his fiery UN speech, claimed that they never tried to starve the Palestinian people, and that is just categorically, point blank, an absolute lie, and that they literally stopped 100% of the food going in there from the March 2nd to May 18th. And after that time, they allowed it to trickle in only because of huge pressure, both from the United States and from others around the world. And in fact, in July, the last month I can get for updated data, they averaged about 84 trucks per day. So I think 500 has been roughly the number that says that is necessary to sustain life at a healthy rate to where people can live normally. So it went from none from March until May, and then I don't have the data for June, but for July, then it was only about 1/6 of what it's needed for just basic sustenance in there. So now then you're talking about up to 600. That's what would need to keep the population normal and healthy. That's something that needs to happen. I'm going to run through quick of these because I'm running low on time. But let's see, number 9, Gaza admitted by a 10th Palestinian. Let's see, what was it? Gaza will be administered by a transitional government of Palestinian technocrats who will be responsible for providing day-to-day services for the people in the Strip. This is what Netanyahu seemed to contradict. He said it won't be administered by anybody but Israel. Israel will decide who's going to do that. So we need to see, even before Netanyahu gets back to Israel, we need to hear from Trump what he's actually agreed to. In fact, that's categorically across the board. What's really, really needed is to what did they agree to? we need to see written out. This was the plan that they were working on prior to that, which Netanyahu did not endorse, said that he has agreed to. So after their meeting today, now he has agreed to something. So we need to see spelled out so everybody understands what actually was agreed to. Gary, jump to 13 and 14. They kind of go together. Hamas has no role whatsoever. No offensive weapons, no tunnels, complete demilitarization, and security guarantees, regional partners. This is another thing, part of which Netanyahu did say, definitely demilitarization, but then it says security guarantees, allegedly for Israel, but also for the Palestinian people, and that there would be regional partners providing the military. And let's see, I think it was 15. Number 15 says U.S. will work with Arab and other international partners to develop a temporary stabilization force that will immediately deploy to Gaza to oversee security of the Strip. The force will develop and train a Palestinian police force, which will serve long-term internal security body. That's the one that makes enormous sense. And given all the circumstances, that's probably something that is really, really needed. But you heard Netanyahu contradicted that. He said nothing about an Arab stabilization force. The only thing he has mentioned is his own forces. And I just can't see how that's going to work. I mean, whatever Hamas agrees to, the Palestinian people aren't. The Palestinian people for sure want the killing to stop, first and foremost, and then they'll worry about details later. But I promise you, if you don't put any of those three in there, and all you do is say the Israeli Defense Forces are going to continue to provide security, and you stop the fighting and you allow food in, that's great. That's huge. It's necessary to prevent mass starvations and more people from suffering irreversible losses through insufficient food, etc., and harm that will go with them the rest of their lives. It's great, but that won't solve your problem. That won't provide any reason for Palestinians to think there's a future and a hope. I've been saying this on this channel since we created it more than 2 years ago, almost concurrent with when this thing started. And I have been saying Israel is embarked upon a military operation to achieve a political outcome that will not work. And this going down this path is going to exacerbate that and just reprove it again. Because if you say, oh, we're only going to do it our way, we're not going to listen to anything the Palestinians, and there is categorically, and Netanyahu thundered this on the desk, literally thundered this on the desk at the UN General Assembly, there will be no two-state solution. So that also contradicts something here. I believe it's point number 20. Gary, if you can run down to number 20 real quick. Let's see if that's the one it is. When Gaza's redevelopment has been advanced and the PA reform program has been implemented, the conditions may be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian statehood. That's what apparently the Withdrawal plan foresee. And you heard Netanyahu categorically rejected that. So if you're saying there won't be a stabilization force, you're saying that there will be de-radicalization according to our terms and definitions, and that there won't be any two-state, there's not even the theoretical possibility of one, then again, what you have is an instrument of surrender. That's not a negotiated settlement. And for you then to say, Netanyahu, that this is something that is going to be, if the Hamas side doesn't take it, then we will win it. We'll do it the easy way or the hard way. It sounds like one could certainly interpret this from the Netanyahu perspective that he is just trying to set up a situation to where he's going to say, well, we tried peace, but the Hamas side wouldn't have it. Because you're giving them a horrible, you're basically giving them terms of surrender. That's what you're asking, because so far in all these things, we've not seen a word from anything from the Israeli side of what they're willing to give to the Palestinian side, other than we'll simply stop bombing you as long as you concede to everything that we've asked for the foreseeable future with no possibility of a hope. And just in human terms, you could figure, I'm talking thousands of years of human history across all cultures and times and religions and everything else. If you take a people group and they do not have a future and a hope and no possibility, they will never submit to that permanently. They may do it for a time out of necessity, but only until they can figure a way to do something to change their conditions. It's human nature. I mean, to an extent, you can see that the United States itself did that when far less egregious conditions and our own revolutionary period where we pushed back on all the pressure that the British government was putting on us, at least as we perceived, and the freedom and liberty and trying to tax us too much and all of that stuff and trying to take stuff from us to give it to the mainland. We would not surrender and submit to that. And every other people group are the same. They're not going to do that. So if we actually want peace, this ain't going to make it happen, folks. So the devil's in the details. Let's find out what they said and what's coming off of this, because this has to be at least a modicum of balance, and that the Palestinian people have to get something out of it. You want to get rid of Hamas? I'm actually okay with that. I think that's fine. I think that's a cost for what the Hamas side has done, and they're no longer of use to their people. They can't provide one politically or otherwise. But the Palestinian people deserve to have somebody lead them of their own choosing, and to give them a potential for a hope. And if you deny them that too, then all you're doing is just starting the countdown clock until the next explosion. That's just the truth of it. Last thing I do want to add, I don't want to leave without this part here though. We had recently Tucker Carlson raised a lot of eyebrows when he said out loud what a lot of people are thinking. And I want to play this for you because the charge that Israel owns America is getting a little bit more traction.
Bibi's running around, this is a fact, I'm not guessing about this, because I talked to people he said it to, is running around the Middle East, his region, and his own country, and telling people, point blank, just stating it, I control the United States, I control Donald Trump. He's saying that. And again, I'm not guessing at all. That's a fact. And I dare them to say that's not true, because it is true, and they know it's true. So I'm an American. How do you think it makes me feel? Even if I didn't vote for Trump, which I did vote, I campaigned for Trump, but even if it was Joe Biden, I'm an American. You can't treat, it's too humiliating. I can't handle that. And I shouldn't have to put up with that. This is a country of 9 million people. I'm not even attacking the country. I'm attacking my leaders who are allowing my nation of 350 million people to be forced into doing things that are bad for me and my children because of some other country. Like, that is a violation of the most basic arrangement we have with our leaders, which is represent us, please.
Okay. That's what Tucker Carlson said. Netanyahu has a different view. Now, in that same Fox News interview from yesterday that I think I've told you about before, he was asked that question. So good on Fox for asking a hard question. I actually appreciated that. But in his answer to mock that idea, notice this long string of things that he says that he's grateful for the Trump administration having done. And as he's ticking off this list here, just imagine, is this in Israeli benefit or is this in American interests?
President Trump has been an incredible ally of Israel, incredible friend. We've had no one like him. What he did in his first term in recognizing Jerusalem as our capital, moving the American embassy there, recognizing our sovereignty over the Golan Heights, getting out of the disastrous Iran deal, and then, of course, now joining us in the effort to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons by taking out some of these nuclear sites with us. I think it's great. I read somewhere this ridiculous, this ridiculous slide. President Trump does what he does because he decides what's in America's best interest. And I've said this often, I don't decide a thing for President Trump. He is the most independent leader, an amazing leader that I've seen in all my years, and I think many people in the world see that. So the idea that in any ways that I boast that I control him, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it is ridiculous. You should try to do that, but apparently it's not so. And when you talk about all these things like moving the capital to Jerusalem, attacking Iran, that had nothing to do with American national interests at all. Like most of these things didn't. They had to do with Israeli national preferences, not even needs, but preferences. And you can judge for yourself whether that is. Now, that's one list. Now, if we take this 21 list that apparently Steve Witkoff, which presumably had the approval of President Trump before he went and pitched it, if you see those 21 points, That's what was before the meeting. And then after the meeting with Netanyahu, if now Netanyahu doesn't completely rejects like 3 or 4 of the major ones here and doesn't put those things into effect, and we'll be looking for this, I promise you, we will be bringing this up whenever it's finally published, what is actually on the term sheet. And you see what's different, and you see, all right, which of these things are in American national interest and which of these things are in Israeli national interest. I suspect you're going to see all of them are going to be in Israeli's national interest. And then you can answer for yourself, who's pulling whose string, who's calling the shots here. Because President Trump, I think, genuinely wants this peace. He genuinely wants to see this war end, and he truly wants to see peace in the Middle East. He said that many times, eternal peace. That's what he wants. I think Netanyahu knows that there's no chance in hell that he's going to get that, has no interest in doing it, because then everything they will have been trying to get with the destruction of the Gaza Strip and the trying to get the people forced out and to find other ways will have been an utter failure. And then they'll be stuck with even more problem than they had before because of the just intense hatred and to have to rebuild all the stuff that's inside of there. I just can't see him just casually allowing that because President Trump wants it. So we are going to find out who's pushing whose buttons. Because if this is what President Trump wants, he'll impose that on Netanyahu. But if what Netanyahu wants, then he'll impose his view on Trump, and Trump will cave. We'll know. It's going to be that easy to see, folks. This is one of those, it's not going to be that hard. We see what has happened in the past. Now let's see what comes next. We're going to call it like we see it, folks. I want America's national interest to be predominant. I want President Trump to stand up and push back on Benjamin Netanyahu anywhere that American interests are not served. And American interests are not served in seeing war perpetuate, if not expand, and the people of Palestine starve to death or continue to be killed in large numbers. That is not in America's interest. It's only in Benjamin Netanyahu's preference. We'll see what happens with that. Thanks very much, folks. We appreciate you with us today. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Daniel Davis Deep Dive.
I think it maybe is not really appropriate to take questions. I'm meeting with, Bibi, I mean, depending on you, I think while we're waiting for signatures and waiting for approvals from a lot of different countries that are involved in this, we probably shouldn't take questions? Or would you like to take a question or two from perhaps a friendly Israeli reporter, if there's such a thing?
That's a very, very tough proposition. But I would think, Mr. President, that I would go by your instinct that this is, we'll have enough time for questions. Let's settle the issue first, I think.